All right, SWP Disciple here. Just leaving my overpriced boutique dentist. They're worth it though. And I'm actually early. My lunch technically isn't over. That's how quick this visit was. Just kind of like a refilling of an old filling, maintenance, if you will. 3:48. So I've got like 20 minutes. Friendlies. It's funny. I was just there for a counseling session last week. An important person listening knows what I'm talking about. But there's my dental facility there. They actually have like whitening and other cosmetic surgery, like spa parties there. I've spent many thousands of dollars with them because I got some, I guess you could say, cosmetic work done about 4 years ago. Legit spent like $20,000. We can talk about that later. And we can talk about the situation surrounding the untimely demise of one Godfather, Kevin Samuels, another time. But in the vein of death, which is not a topic that I'm very happy or comfortable with, there's been a lot of it lately in, I guess you'd say my immediate life and friends, my girlfriend. A lot of it, it's part of life, unfortunately. So you ever have like a friend that you think of kind of more like an acquaintance, but then upon closer inspection they're actually like a friend? So at the gym, because I spend so much time at the gym and I'm a creature of habit, so I'm like if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it or change it type of person. So I've been going, a lot of people, they hop around from gym to gym to gym for a variety of reasons. I've been going to mine next month, I believe, will be 20 full years too. It's not like one of those memberships where I had it and I just didn't attend. I was going consistently, other than when I was in Boston back in 2007. So 2002 to 2022. And, I'll still keep it even when I move away because it's only like $21 a month or whatever. So why cancel? Wow, that's a clean sob right there. Now that the company doesn't really exist anymore in automotive, like their cars are starting to look like something. So anyway, a friend of mine on Facebook, he put up the obituary of a friend of mine that I didn't know he passed, because it wasn't like I was going to his house for dinner or anything like that. I would just, in the same way that I go to the gym anywhere from like 4 to like all 7 times a week, he'd be there similarly. So I'd see him at least half the time I went there. Older gentleman, and I've legit known him since I was a teenager. So those of us from the area, he runs a store. It's still there. I'm not sure who's going to take up the mantle now, called Fred's Shoes, and everyone just called him Fred, like affectionately, whether they knew his name or not, which it wasn't his name. He bought it from a guy named Fred, I guess, back in like the 80s or early 90s. And he just never changed his store because, the IP of it, the intellectual property of it, like, why change it to like some other weird name that people are unfamiliar with when they've been shopping there for many years? As the story goes, so I moved to Springfield in 92, but as the story goes, it's been there so long that there were people that were older then that were like, yeah, when I was a kid I used to go there and get my shoes or whatever. So it was one of those types of spots, much like this barbershop back when I lived in New Britain, that had the nerve to call itself the Harlem Barbershop, and they were not cutting very well. And then a couple times people would challenge the barber, and then he'd get very indignant. I've been cutting heads for 30 years. And I'm like, apparently you didn't learn a damn thing. But that's another story for another time. So Fred, as people called him, I'd see him I've been seeing him at the gym. He was there. He was one of the originals, just as I am. The gym opened, I think, in 2002. And I was basically, my school back in those days, in the summer, the gym wasn't really open to extended hours. It would close early at 6 or 7. So you get out from work and the gym is closed, basically. So I needed a real membership, and me and my boy, call him C. He lives just north of here, the one that I went to his wedding, and whenever I'm in Northampton, that's who I'm talking about, really, for the most part. He and his wife. Who I will see actually at a mutual friend's wedding in about a month, when I get back from LA. So, where was I going with that? Yeah, so we needed somewhere to go because like his father, his late father, was actually an adjunct professor at my school. That's how we met, just playing ball because he was there because of his father. He had a pass, and we just needed somewhere. We became fast friends, and we just needed somewhere to go to the gym. And back in those days, 2002, geez, summer 2002, I was 22. So we just needed somewhere. Like we had somewhere to hoop, but we needed somewhere to lift, because like back in those days, if bodybuilding, like the days of like Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, that was like in their prime. So everybody was trying to get jacked, and same old reason, like to attract women and to look formidable on the street or whatever. Because I was still like out and about and like partying or whatever back in those days. So we needed the gym. We went there, and it's funny because back in those days, now it's more commercial. It's a very large gym. It has everything except for a pool and a basketball court. So it's like LA Fitness Light, but it's like kind of a boutique gym. Like it's nice, and it's like, put it this way, it's nice enough where there's like, it's almost like a 50-50 split of women, probably like 60-40 or something like that. But like there's a lot of women. It's not like it used to be a meathead gym where the few women that went there, you could tell they were like feeling themselves because like it was like a big fish in a small pond type of thing. And they were like the real meatheads that some cats even came there in singlets, like they were at a powerlifting meet or whatever, and chalk and all that. And then over time, probably around like 2009, 2010, when society, you could feel the change in a lot of the gyms, like probably most famously like Planet Fitness, which to me is like not like a real gym. That's like kind of like you just need somewhere to go with it, but that's not like a real gym. The weights stop at like 75 or whatever. That's when the rise of those types of gyms or whatever, and they started putting up signs like no chalk, no foul language, because like guys will, to get each other like hyped up, they'll like yell at each other or whatever and stuff like that. And it used to be like one of those gyms, a lot of powerlifting, a lot of like heavy squats, heavy benches, all that sort of thing. Actually, the former like world champion bench presser, Glenn Chabot, you can look him up. He used to go there, and I'm talking, if you've ever seen a guy who was like 6 foot, like 310 pounds, all muscle, no belly, cut, and had a raw bench press, like no weighted shirt or anything like that, of like 720 pounds. It's since been broken several times. I mean, this is like 20 years ago. And he used to go to another meathead gym down the street that no longer exists, like right down the street from where I live. I think like Julius Maddox has like the raw record now that's like approaching 800 pounds. Can you imagine that? On a good day, I can do like 385, and that's like more than double that. But anyway, so this gentleman, he's been going there since the beginning. I thought he was younger than he was. Like he looked to be more like his late 60s. I found out so this is literally, this obituary just happened. It was like 3 days ago. So he just passed last week. And like, you just kind of take for granted. Like I would have noticed eventually, like, damn, I haven't seen, his name actually wasn't Fred, and his name wasn't what I called him. But I'll get to that. I would have noticed probably in about a week. It would have felt weird that I didn't see him. But the obituary said he passed unexpectedly, so I can only assume that it was a heart attack, just like Kevin Samuels or whatever. And it turns out he was 78. I should have put two and two together because we were just talking like maybe, I think the last time I spoke to him was like maybe like a week and a half ago. But maybe about a month, 2 months ago, I kind of told him like a bit of my origin story. We would talk all the time over these, 20-something years or whatever. But for whatever reason, it kind of just came up, like, because he said that he used to be in the military. And I used to have an interest in being in the military. I used to have like an interest in being like in, he calls it ROTC, like, ROTC. I never followed through with it because like, the whole prospect of like, dying in a war that I didn't necessarily endorse didn't appeal to me. So I just kind of went the traditional route and went to college and attended class, as it were. I'm actually just kind of driving around aimlessly. I'm about to drive by the gym, and that's when it came up. I was like, oh, so like you might have served like in Vietnam. He's like, nah, I just missed it, like a little after, which he was born in 1944, so you would think he would have been in Vietnam. So maybe he was like one of those people that like enlisted afterwards, but he had a particular interest in finance and politics, which we talked all the time. As it turns out, there's not a lot of people that you can really talk to just off the cuff intelligently about finance and politics. So he took a particular liking to me, and I didn't realize how much I've told him over the years. We of course we'd end up talking about like, love life, blah, 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 blah. And he was always there with a lady that I assumed was his wife. As it turns out, that was his partner, and he had no kids and was never married because like, it would say like survived by his ex-wife and children, blah, 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 blah. None of that. It said, survived by his partner is what it said. And I'm sure it was that lady that I always saw him with at the gym. So I told him a little bit about my girlfriend over, several, I guess you could say, like, vignettes or whatever. Because, like, just talking, you kind of realize, had you asked me, like, a week and a half ago, I'd say, like, yeah, so Rick is what he went by. And he would always joke. And I guess it was a double entendre. Maybe he was talking about me because, like, a lot of cats would say, like, yo, Fred, what up, Fred? Because he, like, he had a shoe store and sold, like, Nikes, Jordans, or whatever, up until very, very recently. Like, Nike, you might have read in the papers that Nike's kind of, like, rolled back a lot of their vendors and stores that carry their shoes because, like, there's such a robust secondary market. They're like, damn, we're undercharging for our shoes. Why don't we just do direct to market? So, I mean, even, like, Finish Line and a lot of those places, Foot Locker, a lot of them either have very limited or no access to, like, the signature shoes and the Jordans. But this is germane to the story. So he would sometimes kind of chew my ear off about that, but then also talk about, like, he was very interested in, like, the markets and being invested in all this sort of thing. So I suspect that he was like a millionaire, which probably just on the strength of having a, well-known shoe store that's been there for, at least as far as I know, 30 something years, probably longer. I'm sure he's rich just off of that, but based on what he told me, because he was basically semi-retired and just kind of, had people running the store or whatever, but I knew him, I've been buying shoes from him, back when I was like 16, 17, 18 or whatever, and especially when I was in college, so like 18 through 22. As it turns out, his store is like right across from my school, so a lot of times in my downtime, even if I wasn't buying anything, I just go there just to window shop, whatever. And I remember I got like the Air Max 95s, which, if you know anything about sneakers, of the Air Max lore, the 87s, 95s, and 97s are like the big ones. I mean, there's others that are popular too, but those are the main ones. And in recent years, the Air Max 360s are pretty popular. But, like, if you talk about Maxes, most people are just going to assume that you're talking about, in particular, the 95s and 97s, as in 1995 and 1997. And I had a fresh pair of, like cool gray and red Air Max. I had those for, like, years and wore them until literally they were talking. And that's where I bought them. And, like, Tim's and Penny Hardaway's I bought there over the years. But we talk about that, and he really loved talking, like, about, like, for instance, like, the exit from Afghanistan and, like, General Malloy and all that sort of thing. And we, he took a real liking to me. Like, he was, like, really impressed. And he's like, wow, did you realize that, like, all your girlfriends are just, like, really high function? Because, like, I've told him about probably, like, the last 4 girlfriends, like, in period. And obviously he knows about, my current girlfriend or whatever, who's, quite impressive. And he's like, how do you attract them, whatever? And, like, me, I'm, like, very self-deprecating. I don't know. They just kind of like me or whatever. But, yeah, it turns out, like, in hindsight, me describing this to you right now, we were legitimately friends. And the funny thing about him, so he was, like, a smaller guy, probably, like, 5'7", maybe 5'8" on a good day, and came in almost like in a uniform, right? Like, pretty much the same thing every time, like this older Nike sweater with, like, older men, they don't really wear shorts. They wear, like warm-ups or whatever. So, like, like almost like wind pants or track pants. And then, because he works at he owns a sneaker store, he'd have a fresh pair of kicks. Of course, he lamented because he doesn't carry the Jordans and signature Nikes anymore. Like, he's basically down to, like, the old man Nikes, like, Air Monarchs or something like that, or Air Pegasus or something like that. But he'd have some fresh sneakers. Actually, I think he had some Air Max 360s, but I'm sure he had those from before. And oddly strong, so, like, slim too. He didn't look like he carried a lot of muscle, but he could throw up 225 for his little sets, like sets of like 4 to 6 or whatever. And very diligent in coming to work out or whatever, like, no nonsense. And I found we spoke so much that sometimes it would impact both of our workouts. And I was like, all right, I'll talk to you later. Let me get back to my workout, because I'm, like, very diligent about my cardio, because, like, metabolism's not what it used to be. And he was like, hell, I could do this all day. Like, just talking about, like, talking to me, basically saying this is better than working out or whatever. Like, so he was, quite fond of me. And I guess I should qualify this, like, older white gentleman, real cool. I wasn't like a stranger to him or just a random guy. Like, now that I'm speaking, I realized that, like, the reason why he took a liking to me is because we had a real rapport. Like, he'd known me since I was a kid, at least casually. And, in recent years, I'd say maybe like the last 12 to 15, we spoke all the time. And he went by the name Rick. So it turns out, his obituary, that's not his name either. So he would always joke, he's like, yeah, if you don't, because, like, people call him Fred or whatever because of the name of his shoe store, which was the previous owner's name or whatever. And he would always joke, like, yeah, if you don't know my name, then you don't really know me. But it makes me wonder if that was like a jab, like, yeah, you think my name is Rick. But it did say in his obituary, it had like in quotation marks, Rick. So that was his preferred name, but that wasn't his given name. I won't say it here. Looked very Italian, and, you know, so said, so done. His mom was Italian. I'm not so sure what his father was, but, like, you know, it was all in the obituary. And, you know, I'm sad. I just, so this is me just speaking, like, off the cuff. I just found out, like, yesterday evening. And my boy, who, it's funny because he used to be like an incorrigible cat and actually served like a 5-6 year prison bid, you know, on a drug charge or whatever. Like, I've known him since I was like balling back in high school, like at 15, 16 at the old middle school near my house, or elementary school near my house. And, but he's turned his life around, just recently bought a home, you know, works a lot, gives back to the community, coaches a basketball camp and everything. And has really turned himself around. And he was the one that posted, and everybody loved, we'll just call him Fred. And there were like hella posts under his, you know, comments under his post, and like, you know, R.I.Ps and like, he'll be missed and all that. And he was particularly, like, he didn't say it like this, but like in hindsight, he was quite fond of black folk. He said, like, yeah, you know, a lot of these guys that, you know, bought shoes from me over the years, like, you know, unfortunately they were in the street life, and I've gone to many funerals, and a lot of them were like, you know, like I consider them like friends, almost like sons or whatever. So it's interesting, you know, didn't have kids of his own, never married. Kind of makes you wonder if he was red pill, you know, like an original red pillar. But you know, he'll be missed. So much more I can say, because as I'm playing it back in my head, we've had many conversations for, I guess, what would span many hours if you like kind of like span them on end to each other. And legitimately somebody I've known since I was a kid, and like, you know, since the 90s. So you know, R.I.P. to Rick. And I'm gonna head back and back to work. Only about 2 hours left in my day, so a pretty easy day. I actually have a planned meeting like right now, but I gave the lady a heads up, so I'll give her a call and help her plan someone's retirement. Anyway, stay with me. God bless.